The dog and I are down here in the Sandy Bay Rivulet. This is man-made. This path is made by man, but it's not made for a man and a dog to walk down. But because we're both a couple of badasses, we're here anyhow. You could be forgiven for not realising that there was a bridge as part of Sandy Bay Road. You just don't think of it that way in your mind space. But not only is there a bridge, there's several bridges. You can see the original arch here. That's made of red brick and it's got sandstone on either side. It's all covered over by spray paint. And then up here, there is this much more modern poured concrete bridge with all the pipes and stuff going through it. Coming down here does sort of feel like you're wagging school because there's nobody down here basically ever. Unless you were coming down here to do some graffiti, it's too much of a hassle to visit. It's pretty gnarly. There could be a few, battle toads down here. Coming down here, you do get that interesting feeling. It feels more urban than other parts of Hobart might. Urban in the American sense, that is. It's a very rarely visited part of Hobart. You're allowed to come down here. Nobody does, but everybody goes across the top. Some of us several times a day. Early maps of the area show the place still wooded in trees, and the area around the rivulet awkwardly developed, possibly due to the creek's ability to flood. On Regent Street, the road crosses the rivulet again. Plans show a bridge crossing there from at least 1858. Inside the new bridge, again, we find the old bridge. So the dog and I are out the front of the Brath Rackery Bakery. Oh gosh, wallop, what a shop. We're here because of this brickwork. You can see the infill. So you've got the original bricks of the facade up there, and then you've got the new stuff. It is a solution to a problem. This bakery was in its heaviest operation in the 1940s, and over time, years went by and commerce declined on these back streets. Obviously you can see there's still a bit of traffic here, but not much foot traffic. This bakery was a major institution, but it's gone now. People mostly buy their bread at Coles and Woolworths down on the main road. Over time, almost all the old shops from the suburban streets have been taken away, replaced by the more efficient but less charming versions clumped together. Buildings in Australia tend to mutate into new versions of themselves. Necessary for survival, adaptation can however be ugly. When built halfway through the 1800s, Clarendon Hotel was the best public house in Sandy Bay. It has since been remodelled several times. Now called the Mayfair, it has in fact been incorporated into a larger structure. The underloved but quite excellent Mayfair Shopping Plaza. For long periods, the clock stops working. The pole atop the tower flies no flag. Yet, it looks unique
and it is unique. Without a roof, the inside is still outside. Looking up, there is no ceiling. Above us, only tent. The architectural artist impression was, as they are still now, very keen to include plants that were never ever going to exist in real life. What Sandy Bay Road itself did get, however, were palm trees. An aspirational case of a place trying to live up to its name rather than embracing its reality. In 2016, the decision was made to remove the tropical flora. The trees have been replaced with banner poles, cold steel, awaiting advertisements to be hung. In the 1960s, Magnet Court was built by Magnet Court Proprietary Limited. Purchasing almost all of the block bounded by King, Princes and Main Road, they knocked everything down and started again. The horseshoe shape was chosen to maximise shop frontage. Opposite the Magnet, there used to be a house. That house was turned into a pub, later known as Nickleby's. Several things since, it's currently called the Mets. The Mykonos doesn't serve alcohol, but it is very much part of drinking culture. A few steps away from its front doors, the gutters become interesting. The curbing on this part of the road contains veranda post pads from the 1800s. Surviving till now, they are a reminder of this part and other parts of Sandy Bay Road before it was all sealed and given footpaths. Instead, emerging from the buildings were verandas. One such veranda existed out the front of the Syntax, the only doctor in Sandy Bay worth seeing. Some say that an earlier version of Dr. Syntax is still extant inside the foundations of the current Dr. Syntax, built lower when this part of Sandy Bay Road was lower too.
So the dog and I are here in the commercial heart of Sandy Bay. We're here because of this building. This is a former stable made of wood. A lot of it's rotting now. You can see it's got the gabled roof, the door up there for lifting agricultural products up and down. It's covered in some attempted artwork that's been sprayed across the front of it, but overall the important thing is that it's still here because it's a reminder of what Sandy Bay used to be, a place for farming, a place of farmers. Today, there's all this bitumen underneath, there's concrete everywhere, you've got plastic bollards and signs saying that there are surveillance cameras. So if this wasn't here, that idea of the past could be evaporated even more. So despite everything, it's nice that it's here. I think it would have been built in the late 1800s, early 1900s, but I don't know the exact date. I'm not superstitious, but if I was, I might be inclined to think that the dog was experiencing bad vibes right now. We're here in what looks like a cemetery, but it's not. It's the Queensborough Memorial Garden, and it's made up of bits and pieces, leftovers from when they demolished what was here before.
Queensborough Cemetery opened in 1873. Originally the boundaries were from Sandy Bay Road all the way up to Nelson Road, to where Churchill Avenue and the Hutchins School are today. The bodies were interred in concentration in the top half of the property. By just 1913, the company running the site was badly enough managed that it stopped maintaining the site. Workers, in an effort to increase profit, began excavating old coffins and burning them in heaps to make room in the holes for new bodies. The Hobart City Council bought the place in 1915. The site was closed in 1934. In 1947, laws were passed to allow for relatives of those buried to be given the opportunity to relocate the remains or headstones. Some did, many did not. In 1961, the last of it was all pulled apart and terraformed. The actual top half of the graveyard has been flattened out and turned into an oval and part of Churchill Avenue that runs through it. The tunnel that goes beneath the road is now lower in the ground than where the bodies were once buried, and perhaps some still are. In 2024, the school, while improving their campus, had to halt work after 2 lost graves were unwrapped from the soil. There are, of course, bodies all over the town of Hobart. Even in Sandy Bay, this was not the only cemetery. St George's burial ground was established in 1842, but was fated not to last super long. Most of the headstones and most of the monuments were taken away or smashed up. In 1926, the St George Burial Ground Act enabled half the place to be turned into a playground for the next door Albura Street School. In 2010, during routine excavation work at the school, the remains of a skeleton were dug up. Saw marks on the skull, rib and forearm of a male indicated that it had been subject to post-mortem examination. The identity of this person is unknown, but this practice was often done of those who had been condemned to the gallows. Next to the footpath is a sandstone wall. The remnant has holes filled with concrete where an iron palisade fence once was. As you enter Sandy Bay, you can sit above the dead, and if you squint, you can almost see backwards in time.